Yo, what's good everyone? This is Ayo Boxing with Mediba, and we're here to talk about if David Benavidez got exposed last night by Oleksandr Gvozdyk. And I'm not gonna lie, this was an underwhelming performance. I thought that David Benavidez would stop Oleksandr Gvozdyk, but I have to take some accountability for my expectations. I completely overlooked Gvozdyk and should have studied him. His only loss was to Benavidez, and he was a former lineal champion at light heavyweight. He's an Olympic bronze medalist. Furthermore, he grew up training with Lomachenko and Usyk, so despite being 37 years old and not being as active in these last couple of years, he's still a top light heavyweight skill-wise. So it's understandable why this fight went the distance, but I expected Benavidez to look more dominant and really live up to his name as the Mexican monster, and he didn't. So now he's receiving tons of criticism from fans, primarily Canelo fans, and they're saying that Benavidez is overrated. The question is, did Benavidez get exposed last night? And yes, to a certain extent, Benavidez did get exposed because Benavidez is not the same fighter at light heavyweight as he was at 168. Let me explain. Benavidez is known for his overwhelming pressure. There are a lot of boxers who apply pressure, come forward, and walk their opponents down, but what sets Benavidez apart is his speed, accuracy, power, and volume. And along with his size and strength, Benavidez was a dangerous fighter at 168 and was a force to be reckoned with. He would overwhelm and beat up his opponents because they couldn't handle the pressure, withstand the power, and couldn't get away from him. He looked unstoppable, which is why so many people wanted Canelo to fight him. However, Benavidez was always criticized for being naturally bigger, fighting smaller opponents. He was seen as a weight bully by many fans, and there are always questions concerning what would happen when he moves up and starts fighting guys his size. In my opinion, I thought his entire skill set would translate to light heavyweight, and at the start of the fight against Gvozdyk, it did look that way. Benavidez was immediately applying pressure, but rather than the overwhelming approach he did at 168, he was applying more intelligent and conservative pressure by working behind his jab and a high guard, throwing pot shots, primarily straight right hands and hooks to the body. He was forcing Gvozdyk on the back foot early. It seemed like the game plan was for Gvozdyk to outwork himself and expend a lot of energy by boxing and moving, and once he slowed down, Benavidez would let his hands go and get him out of there. And this plan seemed to work because Gvozdyk was slowing down with each round, getting more stationary while Benavidez closed the distance and increased his output. Those pot shots started turning into combinations that were landing and hurting Gvozdyk, particularly shots to the body. The first 6 rounds, Benavidez looked sharp. Good punch selection and placement, but what stood out to me the most was his defense. Better footwork, more head and upper body movement, and he was using the shoulder roll and Philly shell. And whenever in the high guard, Benavidez was catching, blocking, and parrying most of Gvozdyk's punches. It looked like Benavidez was slowly breaking down Gvozdyk and would later fold him in the later rounds, but that was not the case because Benavidez started to gas out by round 7. He was fighting off the back foot more and at mid-range and was defaulting to the high guard, which led him to get hit more. His activity decreased and his punches didn't have the same snap as before. At first, I thought he was trying to bait Gvozdyk by letting Gvozdyk get his offense off so then he could counter, but I was wrong. Benavidez was not applying the same pressure as earlier, was fighting at mid-range more, and looked visibly tired. This allowed Gvozdyk to get back into the fight. He was pretty much outboxing Benavidez from rounds 9 to the end of the fight. He was boxing and moving, landing jabs and straight right hands through the guard, and was pushing Benavidez back. His Olympic pedigree was showing in the championship rounds. Benavidez would win by unanimous decision since he won the early and middle rounds, but how he ended the fight made it a lackluster performance. It's safe to say that Benavidez cannot fight the same way he did at 168 if he wants to compete at light heavyweight. And Gvozdyk exposed that. He weathered the storm and didn't crack under pressure. He handled the power and volume well and was then able to have success in boxing and backing up Benavidez. So if a 37-year-old Gvozdyk can do that, then I'm assuming that all the top guys at light heavyweight can do the same, especially Bivol and Beterbiev. Benavidez cannot overwhelm these guys like he did at 168, which means he won't be as dangerous. Therefore, adjustments are needed to fight guys his size. The most important thing is to learn how to pace himself better. Rather than trying to overwhelm early with volume, he needs to be more technical and calculated in his approach. This will prevent him from gassing out and fading like he did last night. However, Benavidez did mention in the post-fight interview and press conference that his hand was injured going into this fight and got re-injured during the fight, so maybe that's why he gassed out and couldn't beat up Gvozdyk in the fashion we've been accustomed to. But Benavidez is the WBC interim champion at 168 and light heavyweight, so his next decision and fight will most likely be the most important in his career. But after this performance, I have a strong feeling that Canelo is not interested in fighting Benavidez. But who knows, this is boxing, anything can happen. But thank you for tuning in with AEO Boxing with Madiba. Hit like, subscribe, and more content's coming your way.